Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I'm Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom or Tom. How's it going?
Tony, we have done something like 1,500 and some odd episodes of this podcast over the years. It is starting to feel like we've done 1,500 and some odd episodes of this podcast in the last 60 days or so. But at least in the last, 7, 8 years, give or take, we have done 1,500 episodes. I can almost guarantee you that this is going to be the first time anyone says on any of those episodes the phrase, hooty hoo, Tony, hooty hoo. Which, do you know the significance of hooty hoo?
Is this a Kennesaw State reference?
That is the Kennesaw State hashtag on twitter.com. Like Ohio State has Go Bucks, Kennesaw State has hooty hoo because, of course, they are the Owls. And that is surprisingly relevant to the conversation we are going to have tonight.
I thought it was because they really just didn't like Darius Rucker, and they're like, hooty hoo. Like, we don't care for this kind of music. We don't care for the kind of music they listen to at South Carolina. We are Georgia. We listen to much different kinds of music here in Georgia than they listen to in South Carolina. But no, your explanation is probably also valid. We are here talking about Kennesaw State wide receiver Christian Moss, who is in the portal, who has been in contact with a number of teams, Ohio State being one of them. Ohio State still trying to close out their wide receiver room at this point. And so Christian Moss is the latest guy that we're going to talk about that's getting looked at. 6'3", 199 pounds. This past season, pretty darn good year for the Kennesaw State
Owls? We literally just talked about this.
I know I wasn't listening, even though you did the hooty hoo thing. No, I apologize, Tom. I will edit that part out. Don't worry. 14 games this past year. 45 catches, 689 yards, 2 touchdowns, a bigger target, but also has some speed. Also, Tom, 1 for 1 in throws, 13 yards and a touchdown. So accounted for 3 touchdowns this season. And last year, 14 catches, 203 yards, 2 touchdowns, no passes. And now a guy that, as you're trying to figure out what does Ohio State still need in terms of the receiver room, again, this is just more experience. And he was a member of the 2021 recruiting class for Virginia Tech. So again, another guy that has been around, but has also not just been around, but has now also produced and played a lot and been a starter and understands the role that a starter has and the responsibility as well.
Yeah, and I think this feels like you're just trying to add some veteran depth in that wide receiver room, because that is one where they have lost a ton of talent over the last several years, really. I mean, you had pulled up that stat on Brian Hartline's, last 20 wide receiver commits, and like 13 of them had transferred out. So you have, you're feeling pretty good about the top level of that wide receiver room, and Jeremiah Smith and Brandon Innes and Chris Henry and even Devin McEwen, the transfer they brought in from UTSA a week or so back. But this would be another, you probably want another guy, so you're not relying on true freshmen too much. And this is someone who can come in and not be expecting to be wide receiver 1. Like, I don't think anyone is coming into a room with Jeremiah Smith in it and saying, step aside, everyone. To paraphrase Keyshawn Johnson, throw me the darn ball. I don't think that's going to be the expectation for anyone going into a wide receiver room with Jeremiah Smith in it. And this is someone who kind of fits that nice middle ground of veteran, has shown that he can do it at a certain level. And, he is not someone who, they're taking from the SEC or taking from another Big Ten team, but he did have 5 catches for 54 yards last year against Indiana in that game. So that, that's a little bit of a data point for you in terms of what he looks like against better competition. But was a pretty consistent performer for Kennesaw State during what was a very good year for them. The Owls were, had just moved up to FBS a couple of years ago and had really not done a whole heck of a lot until 2024, they pulled off one of the biggest upsets of the season. They beat Liberty. I think Liberty was unbeaten, and Kennesaw State was 2-6 or something like that, and was bad enough that they were going to fire their head coach a couple weeks later, but ended up beating Liberty 27-24. And Moss in that game had 2 catches for 56 yards and a touchdown. So, he played a role in that upset, and then was a really solid player overall last year for them, and just kind of consistently a lot of 3 catches for 70 yards, 4 catches for 70 yards, 5 catches for 70 yards. I mean, he had 5 weeks in a row, 4 weeks in a row, where he had between 72 and 75 yards receiving, which is, that's just really kind of solid, consistent performance. Started his career at Virginia Tech, had a hand injury that was bad enough that it, Virginia Tech maybe, I think, thought it might be career ending. Ended up going to Kennesaw State, sort of reestablished himself, and now, feels like at least an intriguing fit for what Ohio State needs.
Yeah, and when you've got receivers at Ohio State already that can move around a little bit, like Brandon Ennis and Jeremiah Smith, you don't have to necessarily just seek one type of receiver, even though they've also targeted Z. And I'm not sure whether Christian Moss, what he fits, but the fact that you've got guys that can move around, including Devin McEwen, who they brought in from UTSA, this gives you maybe some versatility, or would give you some versatility if they could land him, if they choose to take him. And you mentioned the Brian Hartline thing. So the stat is 24 signees since 2019. Since he took over full time, he signed 24 receivers. 14 of them have now entered the portal. 2 of them are 2025. 2 of the ones who haven't are 2025 signees, true freshmen this past year who are still around: Phillip Bell, Dizzy Jones. And, you mentioned, or that doesn't factor in one, G. Scott moving to tight end. So 9 of his 24 signees, 7 of which really panned out in terms of, you could probably name them, you could probably pick them out of your head. It's like, boy, you hit a home run on those. It's the others, though, that have made this list, the roster, a little bit, it's not as deep as it could be. It wasn't as deep as it should have been last year. And some of that was maybe injury to Quincy Porter, and maybe Brian Hartline, too, didn't have enough time for the receivers to get them ready, or whatever you want to say. But now going to the portal, trying to supplement, trying to add, and Christian Moss maybe being somebody that could be added to the mix as well. We shall see. But there you go. Wanted to get you guys up to speed on a Kennesaw State target and a possibility, and a guy that has playmaking in his past, and size and experience and desire, basically, because he could have quit, and he didn't, and he kept playing. So if you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and hit the thumbs up. We'd appreciate that. Hit the bell to be notified. Subscribe to the channel. If you're a listener and you're not yet subscribed to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast, please do so. If you're not yet subscribed to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning, which is Tom's podcast, which is every day, go ahead and do that as well. There are other podcasts on the Buckeye Huddle Network. You got Buckeye Huddle Primetime, which is Monday and Wednesday nights on YouTube, but then gets posted to the audio side so you can find that on your audio podcast platform. You got Kevin's Big Me Kickoff. You got Mark Givler's Skull Session Recruiting Podcast. You can find those at all of your Spotify's, your Apple Podcasts, whatever you got there, you can find those. So that will do it from here. Thank you all for tuning in, and we will talk to you all later.